Hi everybody, this is going to be what I'll call for now my official video where I talk about Paul's new album, Egypt Station, which was released September the 7th of 2018. And I did a video, if you look several videos back from this one, where I kind of talked about my first reactions. And my first reactions were rather like kind of lukewarm. I thought it's a pretty good album, but nothing great. Certainly didn't think it was bad at all. But and I don't say this to brag in any way or boast, but I think that since I got the album originally ahead of a lot of people, I might have been the first person on YouTube that actually did a video. And the only reason I mention that is because at that particular point when I made the initial video, I didn't really know what the overall reception was going to be. Were people going to love this? Were they going to think it was kind of decent and okay, or like I did, or was it going to be disliked? So I didn't know. It was an open field. Well, now enough time has passed where the critical reception to this is overwhelmingly positive, and the fan base is overwhelmingly positive. So this is considered a winner for the most part. But this video, I'll try to go as fast as I can. I expect it's going to be kind of long anyway. I have a lot that I want to say. And please, if you're so inclined, stay tuned at the end, because I'm going to be talking about 2 bonus tracks that are only available on the Target exclusive compact disc version. And we'll talk about that afterwards. This review is going to be just for the 16 tracks that are on the proper album. Now, this is the deluxe edition. This is available in standard too. Standard does not open up to a gatefold. The reason I got this was because it's very nice, this design. It opens up into a trifold, as you can see. And, it's funny. I'm old-fashioned when it comes to my preference in album covers. I usually like to see the artist on the cover. But I've come to really appreciate this. I really like the design here. This is a painting that Paul did, which he called Egypt Station, and that kind of gave him the idea to title that for the album. And the only thing is, real quick, I always like to show the records or the label before I do. I was surprised that these are in standard white inner sleeves. There's the different labels there, different color schemes. Black vinyl, it's not colored vinyl. There's all kinds of colored vinyl out there, but this is not a colored vinyl. Okay, after I made the video, I found out that the lyric sheet is here. I thought I saw people showing this in their videos. It opens up also with some nice pictures. And you've got the words to all the songs, thankfully. This was tucked away into the pocket of the gatefold. I hadn't seen it. Okay, so we're going to get to talking about this. And as I say, if you want to skip ahead to certain parts, go ahead. But if you want to treat this as kind of like maybe a half-hour or so TV episode and you want to just grab a drink or something, do that too. I got a lot of thoughts afterwards. After I rank and rate all the songs, give them all individual numbers and tally up the score, at the end I'm going to discuss other stuff associated with the reception this album's received and such. Now, okay, this album was produced by Greg Kurstin, and with the exception of a track that was co-produced with, I'll explain it to you as we go along, okay? Now, I've listened to Egypt Station now a total of 10 times. Back when I did my initial video, it was just the first reaction. Back at that time, I had only listened 4 times. So 10 times, and not only 10, but when you listen to the Beatles channel, they were playing the album a few times. So the new album. So I've heard it a lot of times now, and I'm really where I want to be. As a matter of fact, right now, with all due respect to Paul, I am kind of Egypt stationed out, okay, right now. So I'm not going to be listening for a while. All right. Now, Paul called this a concept album when he was describing it. Personally, I don't see a concept here at all. It starts out, it reminds me of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. It starts out with something called Opening Station, which sounds almost like a train arriving at a station. And it's really wonderful, kind of uplifting vocal choral. It only lasts 40 some odd seconds. It's very short to get you into the album. It reminds me, when you start hearing people mumbling and muttering, it reminds you of Sgt. Pepper, the opening of the album. Also reminds you of Tug of War, Paul's solo album. That kind of beginning. And I think it's a great way to start the album. I'm not going to rate that. I'm not going to give it a numbered score, because although I like it, I don't know how to really rate something like that. And there are a couple of times it's used in the album. So I'm only going to really rate and relate to the 14 proper songs on here, okay? First real track that starts after that wonderful choral is I Don't Know, a track that was kind of the first single along with another track. And I've had a lot of time really to digest that one. And I really think generally it's a beautiful, beautiful ballad from Paul. A nice piano ballad. Some people are not liking the way the album begins. Sorry about the noises in here. Begins with, it starts with a slow number like that. Me, I personally think it's a beautiful opening. It's perfect. You're so used to having albums that just bang in and start hard and heavy. And if you want to listen to Paul's last album, he started with the track called Save Us, which was a rocker. But this is so different in that regard. I think when I Don't Know was first a single, when it first came out, people were saying the piano introduction was way too long. Well, I think it may be too long only if you look at it as a single. If it was on a 45 RPM disc or something, you might think to yourself, well, this is really a long, involved intro. But as part of the opening of the album, I think it's a perfect lead-in. I think it's perfect to set up the mood. And there's Paul singing about some doubts he has. Where is he going wrong? It's a song that he says that he kind of wrote on a day when he was really having, like, you know, a downtime and problems. So right away, Paul's exposing himself as, you know, not always the happiest guy, having some problems, but it's really nice. It's a nice ballad. I really enjoy it. Love the piano in it. I love the melody. I like the part there when it says, but it's all right, sleep tight. That whole part really appeals to me a lot. Now, I got to say, Paul's voice throughout this album, for a 76-year-old man, is not bad considering. I think when you listen to I Don't Know on the first track, you're kind of struck if you're not prepared that he does sound older. He sounds a little weathered. Okay, that's fine. Doesn't hurt the song. As a matter of fact, it kind of improves it at times for me, I think. And later on, his voice just improves throughout the album. So anyway, on a scale of 1 to 10, which is how I'm going to be rating these songs, I give I Don't Know a 9. Then we go to the next track, which is also an early single, kind of a double single that he put out, double A-side they called it. It's the commercial song called Come On To Me, which I love. It's hard to believe now that when I first heard that song when it debuted a few months ago, I was thinking, you know, what is this? You know, it didn't really appeal to me at all, really, first listen or so. Now I love it so much. It is embedded into my head. It's catchy. It's an earworm. Paul retains his genius at songwriting like that. What I like about it is after you just had the relatively somber and downbeat I Don't Know, now you're coming into this fun, exciting, joyful track. And it's one of the few times on this album where you actually get joy on here, because I think overall this is a kind of dark feeling to this album. I just get that feel. I get like a dull, dark vibe, where the last album, New, from 2013, was about freshness and newness and uplifting stuff. So that's the difference between those two albums, the last one and this one. But Come On To Me is nothing short of fun and a good time. I love the horns in here. There's some horns by the Muscle Shoals horns, which is really good. This song now has been performed by Paul live. He's done it on a Grand Central station in New York, and he was on the Jimmy Fallon show. And if you get an opportunity to check it out, that Jimmy Fallon appearance is really one of my favorite appearances of all by Paul doing music anywhere. He looks great, letting his hair go grayish. And I just like how he's styling and the appearance-wise, and he gives a really good performance of that. That really helped even solidify my appreciation for this album even more. So, Come On To Me is just a lot of fun. I give it a solid 9 also out of 10. And I also will say, you know, Paul has said that when he wrote this song, he was thinking of when he used to be younger in the 60s trying to pick up women. Well, I don't really know if he's just trying to lighten it a little bit, because people were saying, why would a guy 76 sing "Come On to Me"? You know, hey, you know what? It's Paul McCartney. I'm sure there's a lot of women that still wouldn't mind coming on to Paul, so, or vice versa. So that's that track. Now we go to a real nice track called "Happy with You." "Happy with You" is a song where it's kind of on acoustic, and it's got Paul's older sounding weathered voice, but I compare this, I keep mentioning the album New a lot, the last album. I compare this to a song called "Early Days" that was on the last album. I thought that was a fantastic track, and this one is also fantastic, and it's a highlight. It's one of my favorite tracks on the album here. "Happy with You," what I also like about it, besides is that it's got a nice kind of fun acoustic little pacing to it, and, you know, bouncing around. I kind of like that Paul is very vulnerable here. He actually is revealing stuff about himself that I give him kudos for being able to tell us. You know, Paul usually doesn't like to dish the dirt. He says here lyrics like, "I sat around all day. I used to get stoned. I liked to get wasted, but these days I don't, because I'm happy with you." And he says that he drank too much. Sometimes he forgot to come home at nights. He even said he lied to his doctor once upon a time. So there's a lot of revelations here, stuff you'd expect from John Lennon, you know, that you don't usually see from Paul. And I really give Paul credit for that. I love that he shared all that stuff with us, honestly. It's a really good song. Well, I give it 9 again out of 10. So far, the album starts out with, for me, 3 9s. For some reason, I can't bring myself to give them 10s yet. But 3 9s, which is really good. Now we go to a rocker. Again, the pacing on this album I'm really loving. I'm loving the way it starts with the opening station choral just for 40-something seconds, and then you go into this somber piano ballad, "I Don't Know," then the fun "Come On to Me," and the revealing acoustic number "Happy with You." Now we get a rocker. Get a rocker called "Who Cares," and it's up-tempo. Paul's using his tough rocking voice that we know him for and love him for. And what's interesting is that he decided to make a song kind of calling out internet bullies, trolls, and you know who you are out there. And he has lines in there like, "Who cares what the idiots say? Who cares what the idiots do? He said he kind of wrote this one thinking about the younger fans and people who are, these days are getting cyberbullied. So I really think that's really an interesting perspective. And I enjoy the song. I enjoy it to the point of giving it an 8 out of 10. Next track was the controversial song called "For You." And I'm going to talk about that a little bit. People are so tired of hearing about it, but I kind of have to put it on here for posterity because this is going to remain my permanent video on this album. So, "For You" is spelled F-U-H, "For You," Y-O-U. People at first thought it was the F-bomb, telling you to go F you. And there was a lot of panic, and a lot of people, myself included at first, that said, "What the heck is this?" You know, it was a double entendre. And really what he's saying is "for you," F-O-R. But he just sounds like "fo" when he says it. The lyrics that are included, not on this copy for some reason, but that are included on other copies, say, amongst other things, that part, "I just want it for you. I just want it for you." And I tell you, Paul recently spoke about this during the live concert at Grand Central Station, and he said people thought I was saying, you know, something dirty or something, but I really wasn't, or something. I got to be honest with you, Paul, I don't buy that. I really think it was calculated. I think it was part of it. That's just my opinion. I think it was calculated to kind of like get people talking, maybe get people interested in hearing the track. It worked. A lot of people were commenting and listening to the track, and I think it's a kind of publicity thing, getting some attention. And as for the song itself, it was the only song on this particular standard album that was co-written with Ryan Tedder. And Ryan Tedder also produced, or co-produced. And it's not a very good song, I don't think. But I've gotten to the point where I've heard it so much now that I kind of enjoy it for what it is. And it's a very modern sounding. A lot of people criticized it because it sounded too modern. It was just Paul kind of pandering to today's sound. And they were afraid what the whole album was going to sound like after hearing that single first. And it turns out that the album is pure Paul, so it's not so much a matter of like the whole album selling out. Paul did not sell out on the whole album. So as such, it's perfectly fine with me to have a song like For You being, a track, just another track on the album that sounds modern. And nothing wrong with trying to sound a little bit like today, as long as it's not the whole thing to me. So I enjoy it enough, but not a hell of a lot. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Okay, so 6 for You. Now we go to another kind of more laid-back song called Confidant, which is an interesting song. When I first made the initial reaction video, I didn't realize at the time, I hadn't heard Paul talking in an interview where he said the song is about his guitar. How it used to be his confidant, his under the staircase friend, and he fell out of love and the romance came to an end and somehow he neglected his guitar. And when I found out about that it's a guitar song, I said, well, that kind of ruins it, I thought at the time. But now that I've given it more thought, I had time for it to sink in, I think it's even more poetic and interesting. It's interesting that it's about his guitar. And I've heard some musicians say that they know what it's like when they play guitar and how the guitar to them is like a friend in a way. So I can appreciate that. So I'm going to give Confidant, which is a nice, again, I can't really talk musically about it. I'm not the most technical person musically. I like some of the guitar flourishes in it. I know that much. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10, Confidant. All right, now for me, I said last time when I first looked at this album that at this point the album dives a little bit, starts dipping down to me. I have to tell you, folks, after 10 listens, it still goes down from here for me. Not much has improved for me from this point on. However, there is one track that I didn't like at all that now I really like, so I'll get into that as we go along. So there is a major change there, at least. All right, now we go to a song called People Want Peace. Paul says words at the beginning, something about, to the effect of, here we go with this, you're familiar with this, folks, I'm going to tell you a story, as if we've been through this before. Yeah, we have been through it before, and in Paul's solo career, at least twice that I can think of just off the top of my head, one of them being the song Pipes of Peace, another one being a song called Peace in the Neighborhood that he did. He's covered this ground before. It is unwarranted now. Don't need to sing about it again, I don't think. And this is kind of a more average song to me. I'm not going to sing this, but I like the 3 words, the chorus, the way he sings the lines, people want peace, I kind of think is very catchy. I find myself thinking of those 3 words. That Paul is amazing how he can do that. So those 3 words stick in my head, but the song itself to me is just average. Although I'm going to give it a 6. I almost gave it a 5, but I'll go up to a 6 out of 10. Next track is a slow song called Hand in Hand. And Hand in Hand has nice words. I think it's really nice sentiment, nice feelings, nice words. But I think the song itself is kind of dull, and it kind of like plods along a little too tiredly, in a tired fashion. Is tiredly a word? And it kind of just, it sounds to me when he's singing it, and he's in kind of a higher register, it sounds to me like he's holding hands and going hand in hand, not necessarily up to the altar, but going hand in hand to a funeral. It sounds a little downer like that. So Hand in Hand to me, I'm going to give it a 6. Again, it's a little better than average, so I'm going to give it a 6. Now the next song is the song that I was referring to a little while ago that grew on me. And I can't believe now that it didn't do anything for me the first few times I heard the album. It's a song called Dominoes. And for a lot of you who have heard this album, everybody knows right now an alarm is going off. Ding, ding, ding. They love that song. A lot of people said it's their favorite song on the album. It's not my favorite. But I get it now where it didn't click for me before. And it's mostly the words, the lyrics that I looked a little bit more about the dominoes all like lining up and falling straight despite all kinds of other things going on in life and whatnot. And Paul sings something about at the beginning and then later at the end, he says a line, "It's been a blast." And, some people have been speculating, oh, is this Paul's way of saying, it's been a blast, folks. This is the end of my recording career. I hope not. I don't think it's going to be because, Paul's always into his music. So I really like the beginning part, the way it starts off. Those of you hear it, the melody of it. The melody is catchy. Right now, I'm going to give it 8 out of 10. I think this may grow a little bit for me as the listens go on, even past 10 listens. So 8 out of 10. Now we go to what I consider personally to be the dog of the album, the worst track on the album. It's called Back in Brazil. And I've heard people, hey, everybody's got different tastes. I've heard some people say it's their favorite track on here, or that they really like it at least. I just can't stand it. I don't like the flavor of it, the sound of it. It's a mess to me. And there's a part in there where there's chanting. They're saying, Ichiban, Ichiban, Ichiban. I don't know how to pronounce. My apologies, I'm getting it wrong. They stopped the song a couple of times to do this chant. Ichiban, Ichiban. Totally taking you right out of the track. This is a track I never need to hear again, And I'll be honest with you, sometimes when I talk to people, they say, what's your idea of the worst song in Paul's solo career? For me, Back in Brazil is a contender. So I gave it a 1 out of 10, which brings the album down quite a bit. I actually didn't see anything to redeem it. Then we go to another slow track, which reminds me of Hand in Hand. It's a song called Do It Now. I think it's one of the weaker songs on the album. Again, just like with People Want Peace, we have a song here that's something that Paul has covered before. He's covered this theme where he talks about, have your vision clear. If it's something you want to do or something you want to say to somebody, something you want to experience, do it now while the vision's clear. Don't wait. Don't put it off. He did that in a song called This One, which is one of my all-time favorite Paul songs, the same theme. But this one was inspiring and happy and upbeat and good-natured and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun to listen to. Do It Now is almost like he's crying. Do it now. Do it now. It's kind of dull. It's a weak track, I think. Not very inspirational. I think he did it better with this one. So I'm going to give it still a 6 out of 10, though. There's enough in it that's interesting musically. Next one is a song called Caesar Rock. Caesar Rock, the name Caesar in there, is actually, I think, a little gag. Basically, in the song, he's saying she's a rock over and over again. She's a rock, she's this and that. And his voice gets into the rocking Paul again that we know. So he sings this really like I kept saying like a she's a woman type voice. Probably not quite like that. But he's singing it more rocking. But, this song, too, it's okay. It's nothing great. Which is the problem I have with this album. People are praising it like it's the second coming. And really, there's some songs on here that are just pretty good or okay. They're not great. And Caesar Rock is another one. It's fun. At this point in the album, it's fun to listen to because it's a little harder edged. But I still only give it a 6 out of 10. So right now we got like tracks like, it's coming down with stuff like People Want Peace, which is average, Hand in Hand, which is dull, Back in Brazil, which is totally skippable, Do It Now, again, kind of like, a little too weak and non-inspirational. So I think it loses a little steam here. Now we have a track that's the biggest track on the album. Everybody's talking about it. And I may be the only one, or very few from what I've read online, and from what I'm hearing in videos. It's a song called Despite Repeated Warnings. Paul says he was in Tokyo, I think, and he was reading a newspaper, and the article started out, Despite Repeated Warnings, and was talking about climate change and how people are not taking climate change seriously. And it's something Paul really believes in. He's always, talked about the environment and things like that, and the earth and all this kind of thing. Well, despite repeated praises, I don't like this song. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for it. It's political themed. I don't really want to get too political here. Let's just say I'm not interested in what he's got to talk about here. And I don't like the words. I think the words are terrible. There's a point during it where they just say, we can do it now. Yes, we can do it now. Yes, we can do it now. Yes, if you're getting bored by me saying it or annoyed, imagine me how I feel about the song. And then later on, he's like, "We can do it, whoa, whoa. Yeah, we can do it, whoa, whoa. We can do it, whoa, whoa." You get the picture? I mean, there are other words there, but some of them I don't understand. I don't know who Janet is supposed to be, the wife and Janet, daughter Janet or something, and Planet, rhyming Planet and Janet. And I'm looking at my notes here, folks. So, you know, Paul himself called it a suite, compared it to like Band on the Run. I think Live and Let Die. No way. You know, not even close, but the styling of it is supposed to be like, it starts out with a certain tempo and picks up. I've heard people compare this to Uncle Albert. Look, I love Uncle Albert, Admiral Halsey, and I love Band on the Run. I love Live and Let Die. This isn't even in the same ballpark. It's not even in the same sport. I mean, it's, you know, it starts out kind of like slower. The melody at times is a little interesting. Then it picks up about the 2.5 point. It gets to be more intense, and it slows down again, different pitches. But I think it's a meandering kind of a mess in a way. It's just all over the place. And this is the kind of song, if Paul feels this way, he could have made this on his album 5 years ago. This is not a new problem. I wonder why he made it now. Well, I think I know. But anyway, I give it only a 2 out of 10. I was going to give it a 1, but because there's some musical things that are kind of interesting, I'll give it a 2. But I'm not interested in really the topic and, let's say, the lyrics. Then we pause for a minute to go into the same thing that we had at the beginning of the album. You know, that little bit of choral, 40-something seconds. Again, it's kind of the same. It sounds exactly the same as last time, or close to it. And it's called Station 2. Again, I'm not going to rate it, because I don't know. It's not really anything I can rate, really. You know, I enjoy it, but I thought he was going to do this more. That's why I say it's not a concept album. I thought he was going to be dipping in and out of the station several more times. In that regard, it reminds me again of the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper album, where they started out wanting it to be this concept, and as time went on, it just kind of, that whole idea just kind of like went out the window, and then later on they had the Sgt. Pepper reprise. And that's what Station 2 reminds me of. It's kind of like the Sgt. Pepper reprise coming back one more time. Then we have the close of the proper album with a medley. It's got 3 songs in it. The first song is called Hunt You Down, which is kind of like an upbeat rocker, and it's not too bad. It's growing on me a little bit. And then we got something in the middle that's called Naked. Suddenly it takes like a almost silly type of waltzy, la-di-da kind of thing. I don't know. It's not grabbing me that much right now, to be honest with you. And the final little bit in the medley is called C-Link. And C-Link is something I really like. It's a really great bluesy guitar sound. Kind of like dreary in a way, but it's an odd way to end the album. It ends on this guitar blues thing, which I believe is played by Paul himself, I think. It really, really sounds good. I like the sound of it. I just don't know about ending the album on that kind of a sour note. And I'm going to give that a 6 out of 10. Because right now the whole thing's not grabbing me much, really, except for the C-Link at the end. So that's what I did. Now, already we're almost up to a half an hour, so I'm going to try to speed a little bit through this. There's bonus tracks on the CD. You know, if you pick up the exclusive Target CD, and you'll know it's the one with the green band on here, 2 extra tracks. One of them, the first one is called Get Started. And Get Started to me is, it sounds like a Wings type of track. It's more upbeat, more, you know, commercial friendly, I would say. Sounds like a 70s up-tempo number. I think it would have fit on the album. I think he should have put it on the album. There's a lot of tracks I would take off. You know, take off Do It Now. Take off Back in Brazil, of course. But, you know, people want... There's a lot of tracks that could have come off for this. I give it a 6 out of 10. I think the lyrics are kind of weak. The second track I'm coming to like more and more. The second bonus track. It's a track called Nothing for Free, which was also co-written by Ryan Tedder and produced. And I got to tell you, it's a wild track. At first, I didn't know what to make out of it. Didn't know if I liked it or not. Very modern sounding. But Paul, even though he's singing a modern song here, it's not embarrassing, and he fits in well with it. You know, it's perfect. If any song should have been on the album, the bonus track, it should have been Nothing for Free. Nothing for Free really would have helped the modern style, to get a little bit of the modern feeling here for some, younger, new audiences. I love the chorus in here. What is it? I know you need something, is what he says. That part of it, which is really, really a fantastic chorus, and that's the part I like the best about it. It's really, really infectious. So I give this a 7 out of 10, nothing for free. And as time goes on, I can see me giving it an 8. Well, I've already been about 5 minutes past where I want to be. Let me just say my wrap up here. I did the totals of this, and if you were to ask me now, without totaling the score up, and said, well, what would you give this album? At first, when I heard it, the first few times, I would have given it a 6 out of 10. If you would ask me now, I'm closer to a 7 out of 10 or a 6.5, something like that. Well, here's the score I came up with when I took them all and added it up. And it's a 6.3, which is a little lower than I thought, but it is what it is when you add it together. Take all the track totals, divided by the number of tracks, 14, and that's what I got out of it. And I'm going to also list here on my last final thoughts, the list of what I call my favorite track to my least favorite track. You can see this on the side here. My favorite track is definitely "Come On to Me." I love catchy singles, and you can see what I like from best to least favorite or worst, if you like. Now, just some last minute thoughts. I like the last album, New, from 2013. I thought it was one of Paul's best albums ever. In fact, I rank it number 5 of Paul's all-time 20-some-odd albums. A lot of people are already, and it's disappointing me, people who like Egypt Station, the first thing a lot of them are saying is, oh, it's so much better than New. I think it's sad that, well, everybody's got their opinion, and they're entitled to it, but I just think it's sad that the album New is kind of fallen by the wayside. This album's kind of overtaking it. I guess it depends how you felt about New, if you liked it or not. I don't think this is anywhere near as good as New was at all. I think the critics and fans, while they're entitled to opinions, I think they're kind of, from my perspective here, they're overrating it. A lot of you out there, most of you out there think I'm underrating it, for sure. But, in your point of view, you might say, well, you know something, I think if you gave it some more listens, I think you'd like it a lot. Well, in all fairness, I'll say, I think a lot of people are caught up right now in the hype. There's a lot of hype. Paul's got a new album. He's out touring. He's playing live gigs everywhere. He's on TV, and people want this to be really a good album. And I think they're, in my opinion, I don't think they're really hearing some of the more ordinary or less, average songs. So I don't think it's a classic album. I think people are in what someone called, and I'll borrow from a friend of mine, the honeymoon phase right now. I think they're in the honeymoon phase. So you think I have yet to really appreciate it? I think you have yet to realize that maybe it's not as great as everybody's saying. The critics in the 70s used to really mercilessly pick on Paul. His 70s albums always seemed to get trashed unfairly. Now I think it's been the opposite, that I think they tend to just praise him. They're afraid not to say something good about Paul. That's how I feel about it. It's an above-average album. It's pretty good when you take everything in a whole, but it's not a classic to me. Some people are actually literally saying it's his best album. I know there was one guy on another music forum who kind of like listed all Paul's albums, and he had Egypt Station number 1. Ahead of Ram, ahead of Band on the Run, ahead of Tug of War. Now, granted, everybody has their own subjective opinion. You're entitled, I'm entitled. But do you really think it's the greatest album he's ever done? That's an example, I think, of people getting really into it a little too much and thinking that right now that's the way it is. Maybe 6 months to a year from now, they'll find they're not reaching for it so much. Or in your view, maybe I'll be reaching for it more. Thanks, everybody. It's been a long video, but I got it done. And now I'm going to take a break from Egypt Station.